When you hear the name General Mills, you probably think of one thing, right? Cereal. But for this explainer, we're going to put the cereal box back on the shelf and talk about everything else they've done. And trust me, you're probably going to be surprised by what we find. Okay, let's get into it. So let's start with a little puzzle. Take a look at the items that are about to pop up on your screen. At first glance, they seem to have absolutely nothing in common. Or do they? You've got Play-Doh, a huge restaurant chain, maybe the most famous board game of all time, and, of course, a breakfast cereal. I mean, they seem totally random, right? Well, here's the crazy part. They were all, at one point or another, owned by the very same company, General Mills. So how on earth did a company known for breakfast end up with its hands in so many different, well, cookie jars? To really get it, we have to go way back. The story doesn't actually start with cereal, but with something much more basic, flour. And we're going all the way back to the 19th century to find the company's real roots. So check this out. This is where a legendary corporate battle really kicks off. In 1866, a man named Washburn opened a flour mill in Minneapolis. Just 3 years later, right there in the same city, Charles Pillsbury started a rival mill. And that single event? It kicked off a rivalry that would define the industry for the next 100 years. Washburn's big break came in 1880. He entered his flour into this huge international competition and, boom, won the top prize, the gold medal. Super smart, he immediately capitalized on this, branding his flour Gold Medal, a name that's still iconic today. Then, in 1928, his company merged with 27 others, and just like that, the entity we know as General Mills was officially born. Now think about that for a second. For the first 58 years of its life, the company we know as General Mills sold zero, not a single box, of cereal. Their entire business was flour. It wasn't until 1924 that their first cereal, Wheaties, even hit the shelves. But this is where the story gets really weird. In the 1960s, a new corporate trend was sweeping America, conglomeration, and General Mills dove in, deciding to pivot in a direction nobody could have predicted, transforming itself into one of America's largest toy makers. Their massive shopping spree began in 1965. Their first major toy acquisition was a company called Rainbow Crafts, which you might not know by name, but you definitely know their most famous product, Play-Doh. Just 3 years later, they went even bigger, acquiring the legendary Parker Brothers. With that one purchase, they suddenly owned perhaps the most famous board game in the entire world, Monopoly. And the shopping spree kept going. They bought Kenner, the company behind the Easy Bake Oven and Spirograph. They licensed Lionel Trains. And get this, the very first Nerf ball, it was developed by Parker Brothers while they were owned by General Mills. How crazy is that? And this wasn't just some side hustle. At the peak of their toy empire, games and playthings made up a full 1/3 of the company's entire business. For a time, General Mills was as much a toy company as a food company. But the diversification didn't stop with toys. Around the same time, General Mills was aggressively expanding into other, frankly shocking new markets. Believe it or not, they dove headfirst into fashion and apparel. They bought Monet Jewelry and the company that made the iconic Lacoste polo shirts. They even owned outdoor retailer Eddie Bauer, the clothing store Talbots, and the golf brand FootJoy. The company that made your flour was also making your clothes. It's just wild. And then came the restaurants. In 1970, they purchased a small 3-location seafood chain called Red Lobster. A few years later, they decided to create their own Italian restaurant concept from scratch, and they called it the Olive Garden. But by the mid-1980s, the company decided this sprawling empire had become way too much. It was time to get back to basics and refocus on what they knew best, consumer foods. This decision would set the stage for the final act in that century-old rivalry. So they began to sell things off. In 1985, the toy division was spun off. By '88, they had sold all the fashion brands, and in '95, the restaurants became their own independent company. All of this was clearing the deck for their biggest move ever in the year 2000. So what was this huge move? They made a $10 billion acquisition. $10 billion. This was a colossal play designed to completely reshape the American food industry. So what on earth did they buy? In a stunning conclusion to a story that began over 130 years earlier, General Mills bought Pillsbury. The great Minneapolis milling rivalry was officially over, with General Mills coming out on top. So, when you think about it, the journey of this company is just incredible. From flour to toys to fashion to restaurants, and finally, a full circle return to food.
And this list really drives the point home. From Play-Doh and Monopoly to Lacoste and the Olive Garden. And this isn't even all of them. It just shows the sheer breadth of iconic brands that have passed through the General Mills portfolio. It's a company that has truly been everywhere.
Looking back at everything from Play-Doh to the Olive Garden, it's pretty clear that General Mills is so much more than just a cereal company. So the question I'll leave you with is, what part of their hidden history was the most unexpected to you?